United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this government that would give substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that both the Air Force and the Navy deny that such objects exist.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and I'm Neti Pot. I'll tell you that right now. If anyone wants to look up the footage from Kill Me Block Party Friday night when Turnstile played, we were like up in the front, just inhaling dirt. There was literally dirt clouds 3 feet above everyone's head, just like Pigpen style, like, you know, from Peanuts, like just fucking around. I did a neti pot. Immediately, I felt like shit. I did a neti pot black. Black came out. Black was dripping out my nose, and I did it. I did four rounds of a neti pot, and it finally cleared me out. The next day, it felt like a weight on my chest, though. But I would have been suffering and dying if I did not have the neti pot to clear me out. That shit was fucking crazy.
I don't like that, but I love that you got to go and have fun. I've just been having to neti pot because the air's been so dry, so I'm just a dried out sinus bitch, and I need the moisture.
Yeah. Well, who are you?
Dune literally physically changed me. I'm Chelsea, and I am a buttered croissant.
Really?
Yeah.
When's the last time? Oh, I was gonna say, when's the last time you had a croissant?
I don't know.
Yeah. So
I used to get croissants from Starbucks, and we've been boycotting them so long, or well, not crossing the picket line for so long that like I have forgotten what a chocolate croissant can do for me.
Go find a local fucking bakery or coffee shop, freak.
Yeah, we have some friends who have like a coffee truck, and if available, they do have a nice croissant. So I will partake the next time.
Come on.
I just don't go to like coffee shops. I don't get coffee shops because in Ogden, there's like a few that are like really nice and good, but also we have less of variety is like what Salt Lake has, I feel. So like my closest coffee shop is like Grounds for Coffee. My closest coffee shop that isn't Starbucks is Grounds for Coffee, and then my closest coffee shop that isn't that is like Dunkin' Donuts. Like it's all franchise, or it's a tiny little coffee shop I have to get out of my car.
Okay.
Really
oh yeah, right. First world problems. Yeah. Also, your sound got really weird.
I know, because like the fucking headphones are still squeezing my brain, and I'm trying to like give my ears a break, but I guess I just have to suffer the whole time.
So I told you to put that shit on a basketball. Right. Well,
hold on, let me clip it. Hold on, let me cook. Talk for a second, and I'm gonna cook.
Okay. By cook, she means scratch her fucking scalp. I don't understand how you're having such an issue with the headphones. Like it's been months. It's been months and months. It's almost been like a child has been born in the amount of time you've had those headphones and you still can't make them work. It's crazy.
Just if I stretch them out, they like sit so low.
Better than
like my ears are here.
Better than having, there's got to be a way to fucking make it that part. Now's not the time. You have to lock the fuck in. You need to go watch a YouTube video after this, though, and figure out how to shorten that length.
Well, I can shorten it, but then when I shorten it is when it gets tight.
I can't.
It squeezes my whole fucking head and it hurts. Ugh.
Stretch it out. That's what he said. Oh, watch you break them, dude. That was fucking crazy.
Oh my God. I'm trying to like stretch them out.
She had him in her hands like she was snapping a twig. That was fucking crazy.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go to fucking France.
We're going to France, and we're going to talk about a man named Martin Guerre. Now, we say it at the top of every show where pronunciations are involved, but we both went to public school, do our best to spell this stuff out phonetically. But when you're reading,
but you also can't read, so
yeah, we're also illiterate as hell. So, I'm gonna say it phonetically. The pronunciation may be off. It's a journey, not a lesson. So we're not in school because this content is free.
Yes.
So everything we say on our Patreon, however, is
Is
pronounced
paid.
correctly.
Yep, it's
Yeah,
paid
because it's
paid
behind a
content.
paywall.
Yep.
So, Martin Guerre, he was born around 1524 or 1525 in Andaille, French Basque country, as Martin de Guerre. His father, Sanchi de Guerre, came from a world where the family house mattered, and it was almost like a sacred force around the family household. Land was not just land. Households were not just a roof. Property carried money, authority, name, and future. It's very Bridgerton. You
Hmm.
have to play the fucking game of society. Even if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you don't have that good old name. So around 1527, Sanchi left Andai with his wife, his young son Martin, and his brother Pierre. They moved inland into Artigat, a village along the Leze River in the county of Foix. There, the family changed its name from Daguerre to Guerre, and then they began again. And they were immigrants, but they were not beggars. Sanchi and Pierre worked very hard. They acquired land, made tiles, and rose into a comfortable village standing. Artigas was a farming world of wheat, millet, vines, sheep, contracts, dowries, notaries, markets, and neighborhoodly surveillance. People knew who belonged where. They knew who owed money, who inherited land, who married up, who married badly, who had trouble in bed, and who had trouble with God and who had trouble with kin. And in this watchful world, Martin grew up as an only son among sisters, the heir of a household that had already remade itself once. So his life was not entirely his own, and he was expected to continue the family line, preserve the property, and become the next male center of the Guerre house.
Isn't it so
And when he
fun
was
that like back in the day you could just change your name and move a town over and no one knew who you
and
were?
just work hard,
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
making tile,
And
arts
farming?
and crafts.
Yeah. And not farming like animals, like farming like wheat.
Yeah, hard farming for sure. I would want to
Just
do Dr. Dolittle type farming. I would just have a French petting zoo.
and that would be fun. It's just so it's what an interesting concept of freedom, right? You just get in your
It's
little wagon, horse-drawn wagon, and go over one single town.
well, well, it's funny that you say freedom because when he was 14, he was made to marry a girl of the same age named Bertrand de Rolls. And the marriage joined the upper moving Guerre family with the established Rolls family. It was a household alliance, not nearly a love story. The bride and groom were young, probably too young to understand the machinery into which they had been placed, and also likely didn't understand the full mechanics of the marriage bed, if you know what I mean.
I don't know
Still,
what you mean. Please explain.
they weren't fucking.
Okay, right.
So, it's weird to say fucking. They're both 14. They were being children.
Yeah, they were too busy being children.
Yes, they were too busy being children. Um, so regardless of that, the machinery of that time was going to keep moving. So there was a wedding and a marriage bed, and along with that, there were expectations, and that is where the machinery stopped. Because for more than 8 years, the marriage was not consummated. Obviously, the village explanation was witchcraft, where
Sure.
Martin, yeah, right? Like, oh, weird. They don't like each other. They just met. They're both children. We're going to throw them into this with no explanation and expect miracles to happen. I think
Hmm.
that was the same with Marie Antoinette. I think it took them a while, like, because her husband didn't know what to do.
Yeah, because they're fucking children.
And everything was so hush hush back then, like, especially amongst the upper class. I get all of my information from Bridgerton, but the girls especially were not educated on how to have
Anything.
sex with people.
I don't think they were educating them on anything. I think that they also thought women reading was witchcraft.
You know what? Speaking of reading, I recommend everyone read a graphic novel called A Man's Skin because it is a girl who gets put in a similar situation and her aunt gives her a man's skin to wear so that she can just go out as a man. Very interesting. And she meets her fiance out in public and
Oh,
she's like, I'm gonna get to know this motherfucker
as a man, because he
as
wouldn't
a
talk to
man.
me as his wife, fiance woman.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because when she meets him as a woman, it is very different than when she meets him as a man. It's a
Everyone's
one-off
just
story.
fucking gay, dude. Everyone's just fucking gay. He's like, ew, get the gross girl away from me. Bring me the boys.
Yes,
Bring me
bring me
all
the
the
little
boys.
men's.
I want to talk to the
Yes.
boys.
So
Just be gay. It's fine.
right, I know. Everyone's going to be so much happier in the literal translation of the word and in the way that you live your daily life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the village explanation for 8 years and non-consummation was obviously witchcraft. They believed that Martin and Bertrand had been tied, quote unquote, tied, meaning some spell, charm, hidden malice, or witchcraft, which prevented the sexual act. I did look this up, and it was essentially like he couldn't get hard because he was hexed.
Right. Not the fact that they're fucking children who want to play with marbles in the street.
Yeah, or a hoop with a stick.
Yeah.
Um, so whereas today, like we would definitely talk about maybe erectile dysfunction in different parameters, even just outside of their age. Fear, pressure, immaturity, humiliation, desire poisoned by expectation. But in the 16th century, failed marriage bed could only belong to the world of spells, witchcraft, charms, hexes, and magic. But that alone is unsettling. But before Martin's story ever really begins, the marriage to Bertrand was deemed as haunted, dude. They're like, you guys are fucking hexed, so good luck no matter what you do. You're screwed. Because literally by law, a husband who could not become a husband was still tied to a wife. And even if her family told her that she should separate from him, that's really not the way that it went because it was really damned if you do and damned if you don't at that point.
Hmm.
And the marriage bed was seen as a private failure of two young people, which became a public wound that literally everyone in the area was aware of. But Bertrand, she refused to leave him. The refusal helped preserve her preservation, so it was definitely self-serving in some point. But it also demonstrated that there was something hard and stubborn in her. She would not be moved easily, even when others thought that they knew what was best for her. And eventually, an old woman came along, and she had the answer. Not a cure in the modern sense, and not a spell or process really that anyone ever wrote down, but it's told that it was more of a strange mixture of church ritual, folk remedy, masses spoken over the marriage, sacred hosts placed in their hands, a special cake that they got to eat.
Oh, I know that cake had piss and period blood in it. I
Yeah,
fucking know it.
a fertility cake. But after it worked because after that, Martin and Bertrand finally consummated the marriage, and almost immediately she conceived a son named Sanchi, Martin's dad's name.
Cute.
So sweet. So finally, the family had an heir, and the story really should have steadied there. Like where a troubled marriage had become a productive one, a young husband had crossed the threshold expected of him, and a household that had been watched with whispers might now return to an ordinary life.
Can I
But
ask, how do we like, here's the other thing about the 1500s. Who's to say that was his kid? Who's to say she wasn't like, I've got to figure something out?
mm, well, Bertrand, very respectful lady.
I
We
think
don't
that would be
know.
respectful if you're like shit's about to hit the fan and you and like your child husband are like, dude, they're gonna fucking kill
I
us
mean,
if we don't get this happening.
very Anne Boleyn conspiracy theory, right? Where like
Yes.
Henry like said that she tried to have sex with her brother because she couldn't like consummate with him. Um, that is a very good point. Nothing indicates that it wasn't his kid. Bertrand was pretty well respected. And I think she would have given in 8 years before and not been like an old lady cured me.
Yeah, but
But
like the old
how do
lady
we
came
know?
into the picture and they were like, we have to do it now. Like we have to make something
And that was
happen.
like her last chance.
Yes.
Definitely. Just
I guess
good
we'll
for
never
her
know.
though.
Yeah.
Shaken and bacon. But you know what? Even if she did what she could to make things work, Martin still broke shit wide open. As in 1548, Martin was accused of stealing grain from his father, which relatively in retrospect, or even just like in modern sensibilities, it would be a relatively small theft. But in that household, it was not small because it was a family shaped by Basque ideas of household honor and inheritance. And theft carried like a very deep disgrace. And theft from one's own father was even worse. So Martin had not only broken a rule, but he had broken faith with the house that he was supposed to continue. He had already failed for years in the marriage bed, and now he failed the household. So, whether he fled from shame, fear, rage, or the hunger for another life, he left Artigat behind. So, his patrimony, his responsibilities, parents, sister, wife, and his infant son all abandoned in silence. So, as far as the village could see, he disappeared. And for Bertrand, his absence was not freedom, because for a woman at that time it was confinement. Because she was still married to him. The law did not release her just because she was lonely. It did not release her because years had passed. It did not release her because he had abandoned his duty. Unless there was actual proof of death, she remained the wife of Martin Guerre.
Fuck, that sucks.
So yeah, she waited in a life that had been emptied but not unlocked. And when Martin's father eventually died, Pierre Guerre, Martin's uncle, Pierre Guerre, that's a fun name.
It's a fun one to
Pierre
say.
Guerre. Martin's uncle managed the property and guarded the interests of the family. He also married Bertrand's widowed mother, which binded the Guerin Rolls households even more tightly. And around Bertrand, the family tightened into a knot. Her missing husband's name remained in the property. His son carried his blood and his title, so his uncle managed his affairs, and his absence structured the household as powerfully as his presence may have. So they really just like kind of locked everything down to keep the appearance of a good family, honorable family
they've
at the
got it
time in
together.
place. Yeah. But people don't have to be dead to haunt a place, and they definitely don't have to be dead to haunt a person. Martin specifically haunted Artigat by leaving it. And for years after he left, zero answers. I mean, there were rumors, of course. There's always stories when a man disappears but leaves too many people behind. Some people imagined him dead on the road. Some imagined him living under another name. Some believed he would come back one day, maybe ashamed, forgiven, and changed. But belief is not proof and rumor is not body. Martin had left, and the place where he should have been remained open. And that open place became its own kind of presence, and Bertrand lived beside it. Pierre managed the property around it. Martin's son grew in the shadow of a father who was neither alive enough to return nor dead enough to release anyone. And the Guerre household carried him like an unfinished sentence. Then, in the summer of 1956, Martin Guerre came home. Or a man came home.
Sure, yeah.
He came back walking. He came back speaking. He came back carrying all the memories. He came back to the village of Artigat, in the foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains, and said, "Hi, I'm Martin Guerre." And for the people who knew Martin before he vanished, this should have been a miracle of ordinary life. He was a missing son, missing husband, and he returned. But the miracle had a strange shadow inside of it, because something about him seemed altered, and perhaps it should not have been that strange. You know, years change a man, hunger can change him, shame, distance. The person who leaves at one age and returns at another is never exactly the same person who went away. And that was the first mercy the village gave him. He was different just because time had passed. He was older because he had lived in the time he was gone. And he was unfamiliar because absence had worked on him. But he wasn't different enough to reject. If he had looked nothing like Martin, if he hadn't known anything about him, if he had spoken like a fool, the village could have laughed him away or dragged him before a judge within the hour. But he looked like Martin, nearly enough. He knew things about him. He knew names, old incidents, family members, private objects, and the shape of relationships. He stood before Martin's sisters and was embraced. He stood before Martin's uncle and was accepted. He could stand before Martin's wife and ask to enter the household as her husband. And the man simply did not stride into the center of Artigat and demand belief. He appeared carefully, first near the village, reportedly at an inn. He identified himself there as Martin Guerre, and when Martin's wife and family were mentioned, he wept. And
What
the
the
news,
fuck? Wait, so he was doing like tours of the outskirts of the town to like let a rumor start. You'd think that
yeah,
like he would just go directly home and be like, "I'm so fucking sorry, you guys. That was crazy of me. I had to
yeah,
just be a psycho for a second." But he's hanging out at like a bar
right?
nearby and being like, "Yeah, that's
He
me.
can't
I'm
even,
him."
yeah, and he can't even talk about his family or his wife without crying and shame.
Weird.
The news did move pretty quick through Artigat, and each person added fear and kind of hope as the rumors spread. And Martin's sisters were like, fuck it, we're gonna go find him, we're gonna go see him. And they
Because why would
accepted
he
him.
come
They're
home? Because why would he come home? You
right.
have to go
Yeah,
find him
well,
at a bar.
they were like, this is our brother. And then came Bertrand. Now, she didn't instantly fall into his arms. She hesitated and recoiled. I would too. I would be so fucking pissed. I mean, but also his beard had changed his face. He looked different. Yours had changed what she expected. But then he started talking to her and he reminded her of things. He mentioned details. He pressed his memory against doubt until doubt gave away and she accepted him. And Pierre Guerre examined him too. And while not immediately convinced, the man recalled enough of their shared past that Pierre embraced him and thanked God, like his nephew had returned. And after that, belief became easier for everyone else. And this is one of the cruel workings of a village where certainty can become contagious. Because once the sisters accepted him, then Bertrand, then Pierre, and then all of Artigat had to follow. So their belief made his return socially real. Now, before you're like, something's going on, all these people are idiots. Martin was a man about town. He greeted people by name. If they hesitated, he supplied memories. He told them where he had been. He explained his absence, and he pulled himself back into the village one recollection at a time. It wasn't just like he would show up in these social circles and they had to feed him the details. He was like, no, it's actually me. Remember this one time that you and I shared a crazy experience that only you and I would know about? They were like, yeah, obviously it's you. A stranger knocked at the door, but only recognition can let him in. Artigat let him in. And for 3 years, he lived the life as Martin Guerre. He sat at his table, slept in his bed, held his wife, claimed his inheritance, moved through Artigat so completely under the Martin name that the village had begun to make room for him as if he had never truly been gone. And he and Bertrand built a life together, and they had one daughter, Bernard, who actually survived. That little living girl running around. And this is where the horror began to settle deepest. Because if the man was truly Martin, then a broken household was restored. But if he wasn't, then a stranger had crossed the threshold of a family, entered its most intimate rooms, and made himself loved enough to stay. The husband who left had been troubled, absent, perhaps frightened by the obligations placed upon him. But the husband who returned was attentive, persuasive, and present. Bertrand defended him and she aided him. When Pierre Guerre and his sons-in-laws later attacked him, she literally put her body between the man and the blows. And whatever she knew, suspected, or chose not to know, she did not behave like a woman eager to be rescued from him. And the records of this all never gives Bertrand back to us whole. They really leave her in fragments. A young wife abandoned by law and circumstances, a woman who accepted the returned man, a witness forced to speak out against him later, and a figure who historians still cannot place cleanly on either side of innocence or complicity. In her book, Natalie Zeman Davis argues that Bertrand may have silently or explicitly helped sustain the imposter because the returned man gave her a husband, a household, and a future in a society that trapped her, where other historians have been more cautious, warning that evidence cannot prove it. But regardless, I know things were probably sounding confusing, but the household held, and the property began to do what property often does. It started to degrade a little bit and wake up the dead things underneath. Because at the death of Sanchi Guerre, Martin's father, the inheritance fucking mattered, dude, and you can't just let sleeping dogs lie. So Pierre Guerre, who had managed the family property during Martin's absence, now had a man asking him, hey, my father's dead, so I need all of my accounts because I need what belongs to me as heir. And that's when the demands began to change the temperature of the story. Because Pierre accepted this guy once, but suspicion returned with force, perhaps challenged by his authority, sharpened what he had already began to notice. But he didn't think that this returned guy behaved the same way that the old Martin did. He seemed less brusque. He didn't have the language. His body wasn't quite right. He was kind of stocky, and he wasn't interested in the same old physical skills. And his son, Sansi, didn't really resemble him. And he also treated the land in ways that offended Pierre's sense of patrimony. He was selling or leasing parts of the family property in the manner of Languedoc's active land market. So essentially, he didn't act like a pompous prick. He was nice to his family. And then
Yeah.
when dad died, he's like, I need that money to take care of my family. I have a son and a daughter now. So Doubt found a financial reason to become certainty, and Pierre began saying that this man was a fraud. And it split the family up. Martin's sisters supported him and Bertrand defended him, but Pierre and his side pushed harder. So the village divided into believers, accusers, and those who were just too scared to speak. But then a soldier passed through Artigat, and he had a rumor that seemed to crawl under every door because he's like, yeah, I know Martin. I served with Martin. But when I served with Martin, he lost a fucking leg and walked around on a peg leg, and he's been like that since I've known him. So the
What
man
the
who'd been in
fuck?
Artigat, yeah, for the last few years, he had all his limbs. Definitely had two legs. So after that, the village could no longer hold its doubt at a distance because every meal, every greeting, and every night in Bertrand's bed, every business deal, every memory the returned man had spoken now kind of carried the shape of that missing limb. If rumor were false, then it was a cruel invention. But if it was true, then Artigat had not welcomed the real Martin Guerre home at all.
This is the thing. It's hard to see who's who. It's like a game of guess who, right? Because like you could see how the wife would maybe like be in cahoots with someone who kind of resembled him and was like, I'm gonna feed you all of this information so you can like
Hmm.
identify people and like have these stories, like all stories that he told me. But then she never knew like the inner workings of like the men in the household, so she wouldn't be able to fill
Exactly.
him in on like how to act around the uncle and shit. But then you
Yeah.
can also see on the contrary that like the uncle was like, no, I want to keep this fucking money to myself. I'm gonna go hire a fucking soldier to say that he worked with him or served with him and
Right.
come up with this like crazy story that would exp like with 100% certainty say like, oh, that can't be him because and it's so extreme that you're like, what the fuck? You know,
Yeah.
like either one could
And
be true.
you kind of see it from both sides because Pierre's like, okay, I'm going to let you come back because you're taking care of my niece-in-law. You're maintaining the farm. You're
Hmm.
not really stepping on toes. I'm asking you stuff that only you would know, and you know everything, so that's fine. But then when like, and for Bertrand, it's like, yeah, bastard left me, and now this guy's coming back, and he's nice to me. He's
Hmm.
nice to people. He's not
Hmm.
an asshole.
Hmm.
He knows everything. People, so he would come up to somebody who had been out of the village, who only Martin would know from his childhood. He'd be like, "Hey, what's up? Like, hey, Josh."
Hmm.
Like, how's your birthday? How's your dad? I know that he passed when we were kids. Remember when we were down at that old rock quarry? Like, this
Hmm.
guy knew everything. And then all of a sudden, money comes into play, and this soldier shows up talking about old peg leg that he served with in the
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
So, in 1559, suspicion finally hardened into formal accusation. The returned man was charged with arson and imposture.
Crazy. Crazy. Why?
Uh-huh. Well, doubts that had been whispered in kitchens and fields had at last found enough in court to give it a shape. Now, the arson charge involved a burned farm building belonging to Jean d'Escornbeau, a
Sure.
local nobleman, but that accusation didn't hold. There was not enough evidence to keep him. Good job on the French. So the man who had been called a stranger walked out again, and he was released back into a village that no longer knew how to look at him. But Bertrand stood by him. She brought him aid in prison, she took care of him, and she continued to call him her husband. But Pierre did not stop. He began asking outside of Artigat. He was following the shape of the man's face through nearby villages and old rumors. And piece by piece, he had another identity surfaced because there were people who said that they knew this Martin by a different name, and that was Arnaud Dutil. He also called Pansette from Saza. And the discovery did not arrive like lightning. It kind of crept through other people's mouths until the man in Bertrand's house seemed to have lived two lives laid over one body. And the name entered the story like a second face appearing beneath the first. So, to bring the case properly with this new information, Pierre really needed Bertrand. He was framing her as a wife wronged by an impostor, and that actually had standing in court. Pierre therefore acted like he represented her, and he and Bertrand's mother pressured her to support the accusation, and slowly the house around her closed in. Her husband, or rather, the man she had accepted as her husband, was accused of being a stranger. So her mom and dad were like, you have to denounce him. And her honor was in danger either way. To defend him, if he was false, she was going to be charged as an adulterer or at least complicit in the lie. And to accuse him, if he was truly Martin, meant betraying the husband she had already lost once. So whether she knew the truth or not, the accusation forced her to survive inside of it all.
At this point, they have a
And
kid together, so it's like, what are we even doing? Like, he's not a
exactly.
stranger
But
anymore, I guess.
it's been 3 years. That's a long ass time back then. It was
Hmm.
hard to survive.
Yeah, it's so
They only
true.
had one surviving daughter. They probably
Yeah,
had 50 kids in between then.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you only live to
But
be like 25.
yeah, but eventually, unfortunately, Bertrand approved the case against him. So the man who slept beside her as Martin Guerre was taken to prison. And at Rio, the court tried to decide whether the imprisoner was Martin Guerre or Armand Dutil. And the question sounds really simple, but the answer was not because there's no photography, fingerprints, identity cards, consistent parish records, no bureaucracy of the self. A person was a body simply remembered by other bodies. So they were literally just like a sack of marks, warts, teeth, nose, a lip, a way of standing. And a person was language, family resemblance, childhood memory, gossip, and recognition. So a person was what others could swear by.
Hmm.
And more than 150 witnesses testified, and their answers did not save the court from uncertainty, and it only deepened it. Because some said he was Martin, that they had known him since childhood, that they recognized him. His sisters insisted that he was their brother, but others said he was Arnaud. Others were like, he's Pensette, and that they had seen him before. They actually identified that man as a man in chains that they had seen in Saja. So others just straight up refused to choose. They're like, I don't know, I have to stay out of it. But the resemblance was too strong, the stakes were too high. A human life was in balance, or a human life was at jeopardy, and that whole thing was balanced on memory, and the memory would not hold still. But he fucking came like a G. He defended himself brilliantly. He answered all the questions, recalled all the old events, challenged hostile witnesses, and he explained the accusation as a plot by Pierre Guerre, which was driven by anger over the inheritance accounts. And then came Bertrand. Eventually, she did testify that he could repeat intimate details from their marriage, details that seemed impossible for a stranger to know unless he had been coached or unless he really was Martin. And at one point, he looked at her dead in the eye and he said that if she would swear that he was not her husband, he would submit to death right then and there. Like, if you tell me that I'm not really Martin, I'll let him fucking kill me right now. And Bertrand said nothing. So no
Mm.
proof, no confession, no refusal. It was like silence with a noose hidden inside of it. But unfortunately, the court did convict him anyway, and he was sentenced to death, even though Bertrand
Damn.
did not speak out against him. I know, what a bummer. He appealed, and this time, luckily, the location of the trial was moved uptown, so to speak. So we were at Rieux before, but this time we went to the Parlement of Toulouse, and it was not a village court. It was a major legal body staffed by actual learned and educated judges. And one of them was Jean de Cora, a jurist who would later write the most famous account of the case, where we get most of our information from. And the appeals changed everything because the judges did not accept the verdict from Rieux. They actually imprisoned Bertrand and Pierre, suspecting that the accusation itself might be false.
Hell yeah.
Pierre may have pressured, yeah, like they were like, fuck you, Pierre, if you pressured witnesses. Fuck you, Bertrand. We don't care if you were coerced. The man condemned as an imposter might actually be Martin Guerre. And in Toulouse, the accused became more convincing than ever. He was fucking eloquent and he was still kind of Bertrand. He was like, I am a wronged husband, but you were fucking forced into this by Pierre. And he answered question after question after question about Martin's life. And the judges even tried to trap him and trip him up, and he didn't flunk one fucking thing. His memory was almost unnatural. Parra himself was struck by the man's power of recall. He could recount events from decades earlier. He could describe people, places, and details so vividly that the past seemed to stand up in the courtroom. So the judges began to lean towards him, and the legal machinery almost confirmed him as Martin Guerre. Had nothing else happened, Bertrand and Pierre might have been punished as false accusers. and the man in chains might have returned to Artigat, not merely as a socially accepted husband, but as a legally vindicated one, and his identity would have been sealed by the court. But, hate to say it, Noelle, there was another man in Toulouse that day, a one-legged man,
No.
and he said, "Fuck you, I'm Martin Guerre."
Fuck.
Before,
Fuck off with that. No, I don't. I'm having a hard
yep,
time believing it. I think he was paid by the uncle.
before judgment could close in around the young man, the news of the trial seemed to have reached the one person in Toulouse that no one expected to see. Because from wherever Martin had been living, the rumor of another man wearing his name had found him at last, and he came to the court fucking right before judgment was to be passed, opened the doors like fucking Aragon, man, and said, "I refuse to let the court make this man's life permanent." This
He
one-legged
said,
motherfucker.
he said, I left my family and abandoned them forever and I was going to, but now I'm like jealous of this guy, so now I'm gonna show up. Now I'm gonna show up and cause a fucking scene.
It's like that joke of like, I'll tolerate X, but I gotta draw the line at Z. Like, I'll tolerate abandoning my family and leaving my wife to like a prison of societal like horrors, but I draw the line at some man making her life better by using
Yeah,
my
right.
good name.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
respected and kind and people like him. How fucking dare they?
Yep. So the one-legged Martin Guerre said that he had gone to Spain after leaving Artigat. He had learned Castilian and he had entered the service connected to the household of the Cardinal Francisco de Mendoza and then Pedro de Mendoza. He had become part of the world of soldiers, aristocrats, bishops, war, and imperial power. And he had actually been in the Spanish army and had been sent to Flanders. And in 1557 at San Quentin, a French arquebus had shot him in the fucking leg, which was subsequently amputated. And then the case became unbearable. Literally, you had two Martins, one with the wife, the child, the memories, the eloquence, and the village life of the past 3 years, and the other one with a missing fucking leg.
Sure.
The judges questioned both men, and the accused fraud continued to answer the questions with frightening skill. He even went on the attack, grilling this one-legged Martin and accusing him of being an agent of Pierre Guerre.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Now, the one-legged Martin, if he were the true Martin, had forgotten a lot of stuff because he had been gone 12 years. He had lived through war, injury, service, distance, and the past had become less available to him than it was to the man who had lived inside it for 3 years. On the other hand, this stranger could remember the life better than the man who lived it. So the court brought in the family. Now, Pierre obviously was like, this one-legged man is my nephew, 100%. Like, I don't even need to look. I know it's him. Now, his sisters, who had supported the accused for years, now looked at the newcomer and were like, fuck, that is our brother. They wept and embraced him. And then, unfortunately for Bertrand, she saw the man standing with the wooden leg, realized that was actually her husband, and accepted him. She asked for his forgiveness, saying that she had been deceived by the ruses and seductions of Arnaud Dutil.
She was asking for forgiveness? That's crazy.
Insane. And the real Martin did not answer with tenderness. He rebuked her, and no one, he said, should have known a husband better than his wife.
Oh, fuck off and die, bitch.
I know, asshole. For the disaster that had fallen on their house, he blamed her. And although the judges did remind him that he abandoned her first, he did not give a shit. He was not moved. But the court had what it needed, and the accused was finally identified as Arnaud Dutil. He was convicted of imposture, false assumption of name and person, and adultery. He was sentenced to make a public apology and then die. At first, he did insist that he was Martin Guerre and that this was a terrible mistake. But ultimately, he fucking confessed, dude.
Damn.
Oh, he said it had begun when men had mistook him for Martin just when he was out and about. And he had somehow learned everything about him by natural means and not magic. He had accomplices in that sense, and the way he was able to gather information. And then he entered Martin's life deliberately. So, in other words, this magic imposter had not needed sorcery. He just used gossip as a fucking archive and memory as a map. He learned everything he needed to know about the missing man's life through other people's mouths, like facts, habits, people, marriage, relatives, the village, old conflicts, private details, the location of a pair of white hosen in a trunk, the names of friends, and the contours of a life abandoned long enough to be vulnerable. He was a G till the end, though, because he still showed Bertrand kindness. And the one moment that she would ever get from a very true fucking man, he protected her in his confession. He did not say she was an accomplice. And whether out of love, loyalty, or shame, some final performance of honor, he did not drag her down with him. He got her off the fucking hook.
Damn.
It's so sad,
Now she's
right?
stuck with the fucking asshole.
Yep. And 4 days after the sentencing, he was taken back to Artigat, where the gallows were built in front of the real Martin Guerre's house, where the family and village had gathered to watch him die. And before the crowd, he asked for mercy. He told, yet begged Martin not to be harsh with Bertrand. He called her honorable and constant, and his only ask for the last moments of his life was for her to forgive him. Then
Damn.
Arnaud Dutil was hung in front of the house of Martin Guerre.
That's spooky. Now the house is haunted.
Uh-huh. He died at the threshold of the life he had stolen. And life went on. Bertrand remained with Martin, piece of shit, not because she wanted to, but because the law, household, and the eyes of the village had literally left her nowhere to stand. He bred into her, and they had more children before she died. And there's no neat restoration of the fact because the husband who had abandoned her came back only to blame her, treat her like shit, whereas the man who defended her at the very end was dead outside her door. Life continued only because it does for a woman at that time, where it doesn't really care that things can be broken beyond repair. Bertrand died and Martin remarried immediately after and had another son.
Of course he fucking did.
And the Guerre and Rolls families continued. Land was divided as it needed to be, and the village endured. But that's why this case fucking sucks, dude, and why it's so scary. Because it's not that there was a monster or like a changeling like we've talked about in other episodes. No demon in the rafters, no corpse at the door. Because the horror is more quiet than that. Because it came as a man who knew where to stand, what to say and whose names to speak, and which wounds in a household that had never closed. And for years, Artigat lived beside a question it could not answer. For every shared meal, every business agreement, every night in the marriage bed, it asked it again and again. Is this our Martin or just a stranger wearing it? And the records never plainly say what Bertrand knew. Maybe she was deceived from the beginning. Maybe she understood more than she could afford to admit. And maybe the truth came to her slowly. And by the time she saw it clearly, the lie had already given her what the truth never had. A husband, a house, a future, and a place to stand.
Yeah, that's fucking tea.
And that's the darkest and saddest part. It wasn't that she failed to recognize Martin, but it was that recognition had never been enough to save her. Because the man who was truly her husband and left her trapped in his absence, and the man who was not her husband had given her a life she could almost live. And when the world finally demanded the truth, it was Bertrand who had to answer for surviving inside the lie.
What a fucking piece of shit. There's like part of you that's like, that's a little creepy and weird, but also like it's kind of the only way she could date essentially is to be like, oh no, this is my husband, wink, and look how kind and sweet and generous he is. Like,
yeah,
the only way she was ever going to get out. So,
dude, and like just the care and consideration she was given in that marriage with the imposter.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing is like she was finally fucking happy and then her real husband comes up and just takes it all away. The horrors of being a woman in hashtag society.
Being a woman in society. I like how you said that. Being a woman.
Yeah. Being a woman. And it's women TM. not necessarily women as biologically assigned to you, but being as a women TM, um, that it that's like the part of this that scared me. Like when I first heard about this story, I was hooked by the fact of like, is he, isn't he?
Hmm.
But then diving more into Bertrand, I was like, this is a thing that just fucking happens. Not necessarily like in the imposter coming and taking someone's place, but just
Hmm.
like the way that like even now we are picking up the pieces of men who leave a huge fucking
Yep.
absence that
Yep.
lets it so we can't progress and
Hmm.
their presence keeps a boot on our fucking neck.
Yep.
There's no in between.
Yep. It's since the dawn of time, it seems it's been like, I always say that like the modern absentee man is like the boyfriend who gets like pets with their partner and then leaves and they just get to go and like live their own life. And now that
Yep.
like that ex-partner is like raising three dogs in a home. Obviously, it's
Dude,
worse when it's children, but
even
it's
with
like
fucking kids.
they just get to go. They just get to
Or
go and leave, and maybe the courts will track them down for child support, but they just get to go and their life continues on.
rarely. Yeah.
Like,
Or like they're not, it's like they may not rob you of like something like super tangible, but it's also these like bastards who come into a woman's life where she's at her like fucking peak. And then the way that it's just taken away, either like they're robbing women of their youth, they're
hmm.
wasting fucking time.
Hmm.
And then they saddle them with these responsibilities that let them carry on a fucking legacy. Meanwhile, it's like sucking these poor women dry,
Yep.
and then they just get to wipe their hands
Yep.
away from it at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
men who like the fact that like what's that stat of something like if a man gets a terminal illness, like his chances of divorce don't change. But if a woman gets a terminal illness,
It's like
her chances of being
80%.
divorced goes up to 80 fucking percent.
Yeah. It,
Insane. The fact that married men's life expectancy tends to go up where women's tends to go down.
yep. It's unfortunately a tale as old as time as we're seeing here. And this is such a fun story because it's like clearly a man has caused her suffering and her anguish, and then she was free of it, and he just had to come back to fuck it up again. He saw her having freedom and happiness, and he said, "Oh, my time to hobble back in, my time to fuck shit up
Yep.
again." It's so, I wonder where, in the anthropology of life men got to be pieces of shit and just like get away with it. Like, and what,
Oh, from the beginning.
but like, but what point, like, what part, like, did men just get to be pieces of shit and like abandon their responsibilities and abandon their family and abandon their life and like saddle women down with like house and
Lit-
children and re responsibility and upbringing and they
literally
just
from
got
the
to,
fucking amoeba, dude, because even by design, who carries the literal physical burden of pregnancy?
yeah, women. Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Literally since the dawn of time. And if you're a
So
man and
weird.
you're listening to this, I want you to be a capital MAN and not
Hmm.
do that shit. Now, if you're a representative of men TM, we have a problem. And
Yeah.
women, you can be in that group too.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
be a male apologist.
That's what I'm saying. It's so
So,
interesting. I mean, even in like the tiny microcosm of it all, like in a not so serious situation, like when a couple breaks up, it's always like now this girl has to like pay for this place on her own, or she's got to like it's
the
always her who gets fucked
financial
over. Yeah, always.
abuse.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
always
dad
her.
goes back to mommy's house and then they're fine. They don't have the burden of children, yet it's they get to go on this. And it's so crazy because when you see men and women break up, like you often see these men go on this like self-discovery tour where they're like hitting the gym,
Hmm.
going on a hike, taking like 5,000 selfies a day.
Yep.
Whereas women just, if they do, they can't even go below the bare minimum, or it's going to be like, oh, she's really falling apart.
Yeah.
The standards for people is just so much different. Or like even just the praise that like men TM get, like you see them after and they look the fucking same and it's like you look good, bro. You see a girl after and if she doesn't happen to have her 6 stages of like skincare applied that day, you're like she looks
Yeah,
terrible.
she's clearly going through
Like
it. It's just
yeah.
I don't even know what the mentality of abandonment for like the approval of abandonment for men is. Like, I don't even know. And maybe it's like it proves that like there are things that are so different about us actually. or like between people, specifically leaning to like people who identify as men. Um,
Hmm.
that like their brain even allows them to say, I'm going to leave my child, I'm going to leave my partner, I'm going to leave my wife. Oh, my wife
Yeah.
got diagnosed with terminal cancer. I'm gonna go fucking hit on 22-year-olds at the bar. Like
Yeah.
whatever is broken in their fucking minds that like lets them do that, like lets them be pieces of shit. Like I'll never understand it because I could like never get myself there, even if I tried. Even if I tried, I would be like, it would eat at me every fucking day until I just keeled over of a heart attack. Like it would it's insane that like there are so many men out there who just like up and leave. They just up and leave their partners and their children and never fucking look back or like send a measly text every year on their birthday. Like it's so and the fact that they could just live and they're not fucking hanging themselves at rapid rates and they just go
Yeah.
on and they do it again. It's just like what is going on up there?
Dude, being pregnant, getting pregnant, or right after you have a baby, your chance of being murdered by your intimate partner go up almost 20%.
Yeah. Or even
It's
like
insane.
the amount of men who leave like a woman after being postpartum, like her most vulnerable
Yep.
state, like both physically and mentally, while she's like taking care of a brand new baby. Like,
Yeah.
I think you should be executed. I genuinely think that you should be killed by the state. I think
Oh,
if you do that, you should
I
be
think,
murdered.
yeah, death by castration infection.
Yeah. I just like think that like you are a waste of space and you are the reason why humanity is falling apart and you should be removed from society.
I just saw a thing, and it was a woman was like had taken a picture of her husband and he looked pissed. And it was their divorce proceedings, and she was like, just signed over full custody to him. I am not leaving this marriage with nothing that I brought in with me. That's what he said he fucking wanted. So I'll see the kids on the weekends, babe.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people were like, what a bad mom. And it's like, how is that a bad mom? Because
Yeah.
the standard is that he gets to leave and do everything. She's like, why? He's a little bit more financially stable than me. I work odd hours at my job. It actually makes more sense for me to be the weekend
Mm-hmm.
mom.
Yep.
And and where men will often do the like 50% custody so that they don't have to pay child support. She's like, I'll pay for my kids. I'll
Yep.
pay for my kids all day. I'm not taking 50% custody because I can't afford to live on my own income. And if he wanted to be the bastard who walked out, then I have to make sure I'm working enough hours so that I can live in this because he kicked me the fuck out. And that
Mm-hmm.
means he has to take care of our children.
Mm-hmm.
This was his choice, not mine. And
Yep.
I love that mentality of like, we have to if they I hate the whole thing of like equal rights and lefts. It's like, okay, then how about I just you
Yeah.
want equal rights and lefts? Well, then how like equal like
Yeah.
boys and girls?
Well, I mean, I love those posts that are on like the pro-life Reddit where it's like, I talked my girlfriend out of getting an abortion and now she's left me with full custody and they're falling the fuck
Oh,
apart. Oh my God, I
yep.
love it. I love it.
And
You
people
know,
are like, hello?
honestly, I know it's so hypocritical, but sometimes when you see a deadbeat mom, you go, damn, women in men's fields.
Right.
You
Yeah,
gotta love it. You gotta love it.
exactly. I'm not like promoting it, but it's like when we say fight fire with fire, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're the one who wanted to play the game.
Hmm.
Sorry, I won.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's always been my thing. I'm like, you want to have kids? That's great. I want to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
You better work twice as hard because I
Or
refuse
like
to give up anything.
when you have these like trad husbands who like didn't let their wives go to school or like have financial independence or like get a job and then they leave them and then they're like left just suffering, like trying to figure it out, turning in a resume that has like a 15-year fucking gap,
Yeah.
like I think those women should be like, and guess what? You get full custody.
Alimony
I
and
get alimony and you get
custody.
full custody and
I
I
hate it
get
when
to
people are
go
like,
I get to go figure out
alimony.
how to be an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally happened to someone in my family. Huge gap, has a STEM degree and everything. And it was the exact same thing. Had to become a cashier just to make ends meet.
Yep.
Took everything, moved the mistress in. And then, oh my God, I'll tell you this off podcast, but the mistress recently said that she doesn't like it when people feel entitled to stuff. And I'm like, isn't that my mom's couch that you're sitting on right now that was
Hmm.
given to you? Aren't you
Hmm.
eating off the Bloomfield family utensils and cutlery and dinnerware? What do you know about
Interesting.
entitled? Where did all your free stuff come from?
You should tell
Anyway,
her
I
that.
digress.
You should tell her that. Want me to tell her
I
that?
want to. I'll give you her phone number.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Um, uh, so that being said, it really is, and it wouldn't be such a trope if it wasn't such a fucking predictable thing. Like,
Yeah.
throw open the window and like throw a stick. You're gonna hit someone who's been fucked over in similar
Yeah,
ways to
literally
like what
your
we
neighbors,
mentioned.
literally your neighbors to the left of your house.
She had to move out.
Yep.
Saw her breaking into her house because he had locked her out. And I was like, I didn't see shit. We have a taller ladder than that one if you want it, and a hammer, babe.
Yeah.
I will
Ah!
never help a man TM
Yep.
ever.
Help yourself, right? That's what you want.
Yeah, support a woman's rights and wrongs.
And you know what? We love to see it. We hate to see that history
Mhm.
has always been history, even as far back as the 1500s. But if you want to see real women making history, you can go to the link tree in our bios. I am at Noelle Fain. That is at Sith Lord. We are at Go to Hell Podcast. And in that link tree, you can find a link to our Patreon. Dollar gets you in. See women's rights and wrongs happening in real time. Remember, you signed an NDA when you listened to that, so don't tell anyone, okay? Or
Mhm.
else that's how the rumor mill starts and you become a fucking imposter of Martin. So you can
Mhm.
also get a link to our merch. 100% of proceeds are donated. You can get a link to our YouTube where you can leave hate comments. You can get a link to mutual aid. Find the mutual aid networks in your area. It's all across the United States. Sorry, I'm not sure if it goes in other countries. If you have those, let me know. And I don't know why you'd need it, but we also have a link to hear us, which is anywhere podcasts are heard.
And don't forget Kelly Halloran.
Oh my God, how could I literally kill me?
Wow.
Literally kill me.
I didn't forget Kelly. I didn't
I'm
forget.
going to give myself 10 lashings off camera, but
Just commit seppuku.
I'm going to. I'm going to do it on Instagram Live. Um, some of our merch is made by the wonderful and talented Kelly Halloran or at Wildwood Owl on Etsy. She makes cool shit for us. She makes cool shit in general. Go check her out. Also go follow her on Instagram because she's like popping up in stores all around. You might be able to just go and physically pick some of that stuff up. So
Yeah, seriously. Love to see it too. She works super fucking hard and is so talented.
so talented. Love to see Queens on top. So go support her. And yeah, I think that's officially it. I'm gonna go ahead and give a hail to I'm gonna give a controversial hail to deadbeat moms. You know, you're a rarity. You defy the odds. You are an anomaly, but you're
That'd be crazy
also
merch. Hail
you
deadbeat moms.
you are restoring the balance in the forest if I do say.
They're the Anakins,
They
yeah.
are, you know? You have to be a balance. It's been
Yeah.
very uneven. It's been very uneven. And sometimes a
Uh-huh.
deadbeat mom has to come in and say, remember, I could leave too. And I think that's
Mhm.
just, what an interesting sight to see. So
Yeah.
for the deadbeat moms.
Yep. Yep. I'm just gonna say hail Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah,
Just very inspirational
she
in
did
these
nothing
times.
wrong. She did
Yeah,
nothing
literally
wrong.
nothing. She's iconic.
So, um, yeah, I guess that's it. I guess we should get the fuck out of here.
All right, bye.
Bye.